All right, we've got a real treat for you today at the Yukon Project. We actually had someone submit their information to our website, and we're going to start looking at them and kind of give them an idea of what they can do to improve their credit. So, Nathan, tell us a little bit about the person who submitted their information.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to call her Sue. Don't want to share any real names, so we're just going to say it's Sue today. Sue submitted a report or a report improvement request. I don't know what we're calling it on there anymore. But she's got a credit score below 580 and she needs to improve it. She wants to rebuild it. She's been struggling with some issues. Here's some good news for her. She doesn't have any debts really, other than a couple of mistakes she's made on her past. But the
So,
things that are hurting, go ahead. We'll
well,
talk about that.
I was just gonna clarify a little bit. So, on the Yukon Project's website, we have a place where you can go and submit to get a free credit evaluation. So, what it will do is it'll ask you a handful of questions, and you answer it, and we'll probably be in contact with you, gather a little bit of extra information, and from that, we'll be able to tell you the very next steps you need to take in order to make improvement with your credit score. And Sue submitted, and you said that her credit score was below 580. Is that right?
That's right. So she submitted and answered a few of the questions we had. Her credit score is below 580. And so now we're going to take a chance to kind of review the other information she gave us both in that document and in my conversation with her to kind of help go through what are the things that she can do to really improve her credit.
So let's just start out with a really blunt question. How did she get to have a 580? That's for people out there, a 580 is uh, considered poor credit in the sense that it's going to be difficult for you to get decent loans, and you're not probably going to have a lot of options. So, how did Sue get to the point where she had a 580?
Right. And that's a good question because not all 580s are the same. There's a bunch of different ways to get there. So we're going to be talking about her reason. And the big thing on hers is she had an auto loan that she got right out of high school and it ended up getting repossessed. She fell behind on the payments and in the end of the process, the car was repossessed. Now, in addition to that, she also has a small collection on her credit. I'm not sure exactly what it was for, but she does have a small collection account out there, and that's going to hurt her credit a little bit as well. The other thing is she doesn't have any open lines of credit right now. She has no loans, no credit cards, no nothing else on her credit card. So just a couple of bad issues that she's had in her past. And so now we've got to help her get around that.
So, let's talk about that a little bit in terms of um, how does what's the first step? What do we need to do to help her kind of make that first step?
Okay. So the first step is always going to be with anybody. Before you start to look at your credit, I'm always going to recommend make sure your personal finances are in order. These things always go hand in hand, and you've got to be able to make sure you can pay your bills on time every month. And that's going to be the core to building good credit. So before we talk about any issues in our credit, I'm going to say, hey, do you have a steady job, something where you can make your payments and manage your money well? And good for her, she does.
All right, so let's just assume that she's now in a stable place. She's got everything under control. Did you say that she did have collections?
She does. She has one collection out there. She said it's less than $500. In addition to her repossession, which does have an outstanding balance on it still.
So here's an interesting point because you look at the internet and you find people track kind of what you need to do for your credit score. So many people say, hey, the first thing you do to fix your credit score is to go after those negatives and have them removed. Um, let's talk a little bit about that. Is the best thing for her to do to go after the repossession as well as the collections and see what she can do to get those removed from her credit?
Well, I don't think that's the first step because all she has on her credit report is a couple of bad issues. So if she got those removed, what would end up happening is she would have no credit report at all. She'd have no credit, which isn't better or worse than having bad credit. She has nothing. She's still not going to be able to access credit. And that's an important note to kind of make. And so that's not going to be a great process for her to actually go and build her credit having those negatives.
Well, and that's interesting because what you're essentially saying is that having no negatives on your credit report is not the same thing as having good credit score. And the reality is, if you don't have something positive on your credit report, you can't have a good credit score, regardless of whether you have good or whether you have any bad on there at all.
Absolutely. And so the first step in that, or should say the second step, she's got her budget now. She's done step one already. Step two for her is going to be to actually start to create some good information on your credit. And there's a few ways you can do that. One is with credit cards, and the other is with something's called a credit building loan. I generally prefer credit cards, but in her instance, because she has damaged credit, she's probably not going to get a standard credit card. So you might have to go with a secured credit card. And this is one of those few instances where I might actually say I would go for a credit building loan.
All right, so let's talk about that, because it's easy to say you prefer one over the other. Why is it a credit card is better for your credit than a credit building loan?
The answer is in terms of how long they last. And actually, there's a second thing, which is cost. A credit building loan is no matter what going to cost you some money. On a credit card, you can actually pay it in a way that makes it cost you $0. But the more important factor outside of the small amount of money that the loan would cost you is that a credit card can stay open indefinitely. And that goes to build on to other things and allows you to continue building your credit, not just now in the next 6 months to a year, but for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. You can keep that credit card open. And the longer you keep it open, the more improvement it's going to give you.
Well, and I think that's really interesting, because the reality is that when you're looking at your credit, a lender will look at your credit file and say, how much experience does this person have with credit? And therefore, can I trust them with more credit? And if you don't have anything on your credit account, or if the only things you have on your credit account are closed and there's nothing open, that makes them a little bit squeamish about whether they can trust you with the next loan. And what you're saying is, if I have a credit card and it's been open and I've used it very little and the utilization rate is low, what that is signaling to the credit, someone who might give you credit, is that you've been responsible with the credit that you have, and therefore they're more likely to trust you with more.
Right. That's exactly what a credit score is. It's a trust rating. How well are you going? Can I trust you to repay these debts that you have outstanding? Now, if you have no debts, then there's really no information, right? I have no guesswork as to whether you're going to do well or you're not going to do well. And so that's going to be the next step for her to do is, you first go out and get at least one of these. Now, in a perfect world, she'd probably get 2 or 3, but secured cards cost money up front. So I'm not going to say go get 2 or 3 secured cards. I think one secured card and maybe a credit building loan would probably be the best thing for her to do. That way you don't have to put out enough money to get 2 or 3 secured cards.
So why shouldn't people be a little bit nervous about this idea of having to have more than one of these credit lines, right? If I've got a credit card and I'm paying it off well and a lender can see that I have that, why is it important to have a second one or even a third one? You keep talking that we need more than one. Why, if all I'm doing is establishing a history of being able to handle credit, why isn't one good enough?
So there's 2 reasons. One, there's a volume play here. When you're looking in the credit report and you're looking at the information, you actually want to see more than one payment being made. And there's a roughly, I would say, you really want to have 36 payments on your credit report that are on time without any issues. Now, that's a rough number. More is obviously better. But you can get those 36 payments a lot faster if you use 3 accounts than if you only use 1. And with 3 accounts, you can get that in just 1 year, and you're really going to have a stable base. The other reason, the secondary reason, is a little bit more of a futuristic, what if you run into problems play? And that goes to just the volume. If you only have 1 account and you make a mistake on it, you forget to pay the bill for something, it's really going to hurt you. But if you've got 3 or 4 accounts out there and you make 1 mistake and then you recover really quickly, you're barely going to see the damage because it's realized easily that it was just a small minor hiccup, not a big deal, and you can recover a lot faster. So it helps you in the long run to do that and have multiple pieces to really build.
All right, so let's wrap this up. Give us the 3 things that Sue needs to do and give us an idea of how much that is likely to help her in the next 3, 6, 9, or 12 months.
All right, so let's jump into it real quick. She's got a budget. She's done step 1. Step 2, get a secured credit card and get a credit building loan. take 6 months to just use those really well. And in 6 months, when that's done, you should see a phenomenal improvement in the credit score. At least 100 points, maybe 150 points.
So give me before you go on there, why is it that you know that alone is worth 100, 150 points?
This comes from me studying, researching, and doing analytics on over 10 million credit reports. Now I say that there's no private. I haven't actually looked at Joe's and Frank's and Bob's credit reports, but I got access to 10 million data files of credit reports along with those scores. And that allowed me to research it, study, and apply statistics to it to really understand the impacts and the variations that happen.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. Yeah.
We got one more thing we want to add in this because we didn't quite get there. We talked about credit. We talked about building new credit. We talked about what happened in 6 months. Let's step one farther thing, take one more minute to say, after that 6 months and that 100, 150 points, that's when she should tackle that repossession and that collection and try to get those off. Negotiate them, pay them off, get them off that credit report, and then those 2 accounts can be turned into 3 or 4 accounts with good credit cards, and you're going to see a fantastic credit score over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. You're going to be in the 700s.
That's awesome. All right, anybody listening out there, if you are working on your credit score and you would like some professional advice about what you might be able to do to improve your credit, head on over to the Yukon Project website. We have a form there where you can fill it out and get a free consultation on what you can do to improve your credit score. Thanks for watching.